Family cars have changed an awful lot from when I was a lad. Just 30 short years ago, you couldn't walk down your local high street without tripping over a saloon-shaped motor like a Ford Mondeo or a Vauxhall Vectra. But these days, buyers have convinced themselves they need a bloated, brick-faced fake off-roader to carry their families around in. I can't understand the reasoning. In fact, my dad disagrees with the SUV concept on a cellular level, so I grew up in the back of an Alfa Romeo 156. But even though it didn't have folding rear seats or a massive tailgate, I can't ever remember my parents wishing they had more space. In fact, that car served us so well that we've still got it today. Look. So, to find out whether saloons are just as useful now as they were when I was a lad, I'm running this 3 Series as my long-termer, and just to make things a bit more interesting, I've got the plug-in hybrid powered 330e. It's a bit less practical than the standard 3 Series because the battery pack cuts its boot capacity down from 480 litres to 375 litres. But if this compromised version of the 3 Series can prove itself to be practical enough for the average family, then maybe there's still life left in the saloon car yet. Keep watching to find out. Because SUVs are so tall, they give the illusion of much greater practicality. But because most are built on platforms designed to underpin shorter cars, they normally offer the same amount of space inside as a hatchback or a saloon. This is a Volkswagen Tiguan. It's a completely average, run-of-the-mill family SUV that belongs to the same class as the 3 Series. And I'm going to use it to illustrate my point, starting with the amount of space it has in its cabin. Right, I've set that seat in my driving position, and if we just have a little check, we'll see that I've got about 4 inches between my knee and the seat back. Let's go and see what it's like in the BM. If we do the same thing in the back of the 330e, we'll find that I've got very nearly 5 inches of space between my knee and the back of the driver's seat. And that's interesting, isn't it? So you're getting more knee room in a car that's smaller, that's lighter, that's better to drive, and that's more aerodynamic. And yeah, you sacrifice a couple of inches worth of headroom by opting for this saloon over that SUV. But considering all the other benefits that the 330e offers, I think that's a minor sacrifice that's well worth making. Boot space is a slightly different matter, as you have a lot less height to play with in a saloon. But the point I'm trying to make is that you shouldn't rush out and buy an SUV just because you might need to carry a tall houseplant at some point during the next 3 to 5 years. It's easy to get swept away by the figures, but for the kind of stuff you normally carry in your car, the 375 litres offered by the 330e is more than big enough. These 2 suitcases fit just as well in the back of that BMW as they do in that Volkswagen, and it's the same story for the weekly shop. And if you desperately need more space, BM's got an answer for that in the shape of the 330e Touring. That being said, I should mention there are more practical plug-in hybrid saloons than the BMW 330e. So the BYD Seal 6 Saloon, for example, offers a whopping 491 litres of boot space, which means you don't need to be quite as good at Tetris to pack your luggage into the boot. But the BYD, or your average family SUV for that matter, doesn't drive anywhere near as well as the BMW, as I'll now explain. This is BMW's party piece. Yes, you can buy more efficient and more spacious and cheaper plug-in hybrids than the 330e, but none of its rivals can tear down a country lane with quite as much ease. BMW's done very well to plant that opinion in me too, because I've always been one of the brand's biggest naysayers. Given the choice, I would have always steered towards something Italian or Japanese. But after spending a couple of months with this 330e, I'm developing a taste for the BMW Kool-Aid. BMW's probably the only attainable brand left that really cares about driving feel. Now, I appreciate that's quite a subjective thing to quantify, so I'll do my best to explain myself, and then you can tear me to shreds in the comments. I'll start with steering. It isn't as communicative as the E46 330ci that I drove on the channel a few months back, but it's leagues ahead of anything else in the compact executive class right now. It isn't overly assisted, and you can still feel the faintest whiff of the road surface in your palms, which, it's just so precious to find these days. Then there's the way the chassis is laid out. Engine at the front, drive to the rear, and a big daft northerner in the middle laughing every time the back end steps out on a greasy roundabout. Not that I'm condoning such yobbish behaviour, mind. The point I'm trying to make is that it's balanced. So because the front wheels only need to worry about the steering, the 330e is far more eager to change direction and much more willing to hold its line than a front wheel drive equivalent. And that means that this is way more fun to carve down your favourite B-road in than it would be in a BYD Seal 6, for example. And while the 330e's 292 horsepower certainly makes it brisk enough, it isn't all that efficient for long-distance drivers. I often fly from Gatwick for work, which is about 150 miles from my house, but I need to be quite careful if I want to get there and back on a tank of fuel and a full charge. The battery only really lasts for about 30 miles, and once that's gone, I'm getting between 35 and 40 mpg out of it, which isn't really good enough. The problem's compounded by the fact that the 330e has a smaller 8-gallon fuel tank compared to the 11-gallon fuel tank you get in a standard 320i. That puts my real-world range at about 300 miles, and that makes the last 10 miles of my airport commute really quite nerve-wracking, especially at 1 o'clock in the morning when most of the petrol stations in my county are shut. The hybrid system's just a bit dense. I'm finding it likes to run on either electric power or petrol power, and it doesn't really blend the two unless your foot's mashed into the carpet. I guess it's quite tricky to mesh the engine and the motor through the gearbox at slow speeds, but BYD managed it with the Seal 6, so why can't BMW? The brakes also feel a bit strange at the top of the travel because you need to push through a couple of millimeters worth of regen before the pads contact the discs. Plus, the 330e is a bit heavier than a standard 3 Series, so if I'm really splitting hairs, it's not quite as nimble, but it's 9/10 there, and I'm more than willing to sacrifice that last tenth for the tax break. To put the figures into perspective, a BMW 320i spec'd up like this car has a benefit in kind tax rating of 35%. That means if you're on a salary of less than £50,270, you'll be paying £3 a year to put it on your drive. But if you go for a 330e in the same spec under the same conditions, you'll be spending less than £950 annually. That's a huge saving for a car that's faster in a straight line and, providing you can spend more time beetling around on electric power than I can, more efficient. Yes, a BMW i4 will only cost you about £400 a year, but not everybody's ready to make the switch to an EV just yet, so this makes for a great stopgap. Just a word of warning if you're thinking about buying a 330e outright though. Be very careful with BMW's options list because it can hugely inflate the cost of the car if you get carried away. Before any options, this car cost £47,000. But by the time BMW had finished ram-raiding its factory warehouse with it, its sticker price had swollen to around £59,000. That's £7,000 more than a larger, albeit base spec 5 Series. It's also worth noting you can get much better value for your money by opting for one of BMW's Chinese rivals. Prices for the top spec BYD Seal 6 DMI start from around £35,000, while the MG HS PHEV is priced from around £32,000. Those deals look incredibly tempting, but you lose out in other areas. The biggest area is interior quality. Yes, Chinese PHEVs offer an awful lot of bang for your buck, but I'm yet to drive one that doesn't feel flimsy and cheap. By comparison, the 3 Series feels sturdy and expensive. It's like comparing a Casio watch to a Breitling, and you really appreciate that extra quality in an item when you're spending all your time with it. I also love the way it's laid out. I think the 3 Series has one of my favourite new car interiors, and yes, the dashboard's dominated by a massive touchscreen infotainment system, which, if you've seen my Renault Scenic review, you'll know I'm not a huge fan of. But, unlike the equivalent Audi and Mercedes, the BMW's got this. It's BMW's iDrive controller, and it solves my biggest problem with modern cars. Because of this dial, I don't need to divert my attention off the road and onto the screen to hit a frustratingly small touchscreen icon. You can just highlight whatever you want with the cursor and push the dial down to select it. Simple. I also love these sports seats. You need to step up to BMW's M Sport trim to get them, but they offer tons of support and even have adjustable side bolsters that can be cinched up to better hold you in place when you're hooning down a V road. If I had to be critical, I'm not a huge fan of this steering wheel. BMW's got this weird fetish for chubby steering wheels at the minute, and I wish it would snap out of it. I mean, it's just too cumbersome. And if these spades of hands can't manage to wrestle with it, there's something seriously wrong. At the start of this video, I sought to determine whether the 330e could function as a proper family car, and given that it can fit all 6 foot of me in the back and a brace of suitcases in its already compromised boot, I'd say that it can. Yes, the 330e isn't as convenient as a hulking SUV or as cheap as a Chinese PHEV saloon, but the benefits you gain in driving dynamics and build quality more than outweigh those issues for me, especially if you can get one as a company car. Having one of these on your drive for less than £1,000 a year is a no-brainer as far as I'm concerned. It's still a jack of all trades, and if I was in the market for a new family car, I'd definitely be shopping for one. But what do you think? Do you think saloons still have a place in the family car market, or do you think they've had their day and they should just pass the torch on to SUVs? Let me know in the comment section below. And while you're there, give us a like if you want to see more content like this, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss our next update.